Hello everyone, this is Caly. Welcome back for another STAMPtember 2024 exclusive video. Today's video is in collaboration with Altenew, and we are using the Azelea bunch set. This 4x6 stamp set comes with coordinating dies. That is an option for purchase, and here is a look at that stamp set and also a look at the die set that is also available. You can purchase these together or you can purchase the stamp alone. So I'm going to be doing some watercoloring here using some Altenew watercolor paper. This is a A2 size card that is loose in the package, so you can buy them in A2 sizes, and there are other sizes that are available, and I do love their watercolor paper. So I'm going to stamp with a no-line ink. This no-line ink is from Honeybee Stamps, and I like it because it's very light, but I can still see it after a few impressions. Now I know you can't see it too well on camera, but you'll see here when I tilt it up that you can in fact see the lines very clearly from a good angle. So I'm always going to keep that stamp set close to me so that I can always reference it to make sure that I'm coloring the right petals instead of leaves. Sometimes with no line coloring, it can be difficult to decipher. So keeping that stamp set nearby for reference is a good idea. So I've set up my work surface here. I've got a glass of water and I've got a chamois. You can also use a paper towel. It's whatever you want to use, but I am using the Altenew Artist Watercolor 24 pan set, and I'm pulling out 3 colors that I plan on using on this. I'm using one color for all of the azalea flowers, which is Cherry Blossom, and then using a little bit of Fiery Sunset on the stamens, but that's at the very end. And for the 2 greens, I'm using Green Meadows and Green Hills. This is going to be sped up so that you can see it come together from start to finish. However, it does take a lot of patience to do no-line watercoloring. I have to skip around a lot because I want each petal that I'm working on to dry before I move on to the next petal adjacent to it. So I have to skip from one petal to the next. And so be patient with yourself. If you've never done this before, just keep going. Honestly, if I had watercolored for the first time doing no-line watercoloring with this particular card, I probably would have stopped after the second petal. It looks like a globby mess at first, but if you keep going, you'll see it come together. So I am adding pigment at the corner and crevices of all of the flowers, and then at the very edges and tips of the flowers where they kind of fold and curve, you want to add a little bit of pigmentation there as well so that you can see that come to life and make it look a little bit more realistic for the flower. So I'm working slowly, again, one petal at a time, and hopping between petals that aren't touching so that they have a little time to dry before you go back and work on the petals that are adjacent to it. After I get a soft wash on all of the petals, I do go back in and accent in little areas, adding a little bit more darkness to intensify some of those shadows if I need to. And again, you can always build up that color as you go. So try to start light if you aren't very confident with your watercoloring style yet, and then build up as you go. And then as I move on to the leaves here, I do use 2 colors because I want it to be a little bit more interesting. And here again, if I was to stop at any point, I would have stopped at the first or second leaf because I did not like how they looked. And I was still playing with the shadows. And so I kept going. Just keep going. And overall, when you look at a finished product, those smaller nitpicky things that you don't like along the way, it's just going to blend in with the entire bouquet. So my encouragement to you is to not give up and to just continue with it until you're done with the entire process. These leaves are sectioned into 2 segments per leaf, and normally I would color them as 2 separate sections, but because I was frustrated with how my first 2 leaves looked, I decided to watercolor them all as 1 section. And that's the beauty of doing no line coloring, is that you can watercolor it the way you like and decide not to color the leaf in 2 separate segments and do what I did here and just color as 1 section. So there are some options and good things about watercoloring with no line. You can kind of hide a few little mistakes. If you go over the line, you can make that petal bigger. Those are just a few examples, but I do find that No line coloring is a challenge and it does require more patience. So be kind to yourself and don't give up. So here I'm going in with that orange yellow color on the stamens, and I'm pulling back in that stamp set so that I can see where those stamens are supposed to go and how those stems curve and flow out of the center of the flower. So I'll do that with a Tombow monoline pen. It's just a black pen. I'm adding a few details at the center to intensify the center of those flowers. And if you want to, you can also use colored pencil. That's a great alternative as well. Using the coordinating die, I'm going to die cut that floral bouquet, and as you can see, it looks so much better as an overall composition, but when you're working through it and getting frustrated with yourself, you're going to be nitpicking your own work, and so just keep going. Now for the background, I'm using the Tuft Elegance embossing folder from Altenew. I did that using some hammermill cardstock. Then I trimmed a 1/4 inch off all of the sides so that I can mat it with some neutral cardstock when I'm done. Now here I'm using some Coral Bliss fresh dye ink from Altenew, and I'm just going to ink blend a little bit where I want my bouquet to sit, and I'm going to go lightly so that that ink grabs mostly onto the raised edges of this embossed panel. So once I'm happy with that, I can go ahead and adhere the floral panel to this background. I'm using some 3D foam squares. This will add some dimension as well as ensure that the attached image is going to attach well to an embossed background. And then I'm going to work on a sentiment. I'm just holding the sentiments over that area to see which one I like best, and I decided to go with the Hello Friend sentiment. I'm going to be embossing this in gold over white cardstock, so I've got it in my MISTI, and I'm going to dust my cardstock here with some anti-static powder tool. Next, I'll add some embossing ink, and then stamp that sentiment, and then sprinkle gold embossing powder over it. Anytime I tap off excess embossing powder, I go really slow, because as you're tapping off, the bigger chunks will fly off first, so you want to give a chance for the little guys and the more fine powders to get in there and adhere to that ink, so you'll get a better impression that way. That's just my experience, and I hope you'll find that that's a good tip. Okay, so I used a coordinating die to die cut that sentiment, and before I add it, I want to add some splatters. I'm using some gold ink from the Altenew metallic watercolor pan set, so I've watered it down and mixed it up real good and just splattered it all over the panel until I was happy with it. Then I'll use some 3D foam squares to attach the right side of the sentiment and liquid adhesive where it's going to overlap with the image that I've already adhered down. Now that our card front is done, I'm going to apply that mat, and I'm using some Nina 80-pound Desert Storm cardstock, and then I'll adhere the panel over that with that 1/4 inch mat all the way around as we discussed earlier. And at this point, you can stop. I decided to add a little bit of bling to it, so I'm using some clear enamel dots from Altenew, and I'm just adding some here or there in different areas and on top of the flowers as well for some additional interest. And that finishes my card for today. I hope you enjoyed this exclusive STAMPtember collaboration set with Altenew for Simon Says Stamp for STAMPtember 2024. If you're interested in any of the products that I use, be sure to check out the links below where everything will be linked for your convenience. Thank you so much for stopping by and have a wonderful day. Bye everyone.